There's something deeply unsettling yet irresistibly captivating about standing in the hollowed-out remains of a place once filled with life, prayer, and purpose. Picture this: the scent of old stone and damp earth, the faintest echo of a chant that seems to drift through the empty halls like a ghostly refrain. These abandoned monasteries across Europe aren't just crumbling buildings, they're time capsules, holding onto stories that refuse to fade. Some whisper of devotion, others of tragedy, and a few, well, they hint at something far more mysterious. Today, we're stepping into these forgotten sanctuaries to uncover 27 haunting echoes that linger within their walls, each one a fragment of history waiting to be heard. Think about the last time you walked through an old church or a quiet forest, how the air itself seemed to hum with unspoken energy. Now imagine that feeling amplified by centuries of prayer, solitude, and untold secrets. These monasteries were once bustling centers of faith and learning, places where monks dedicated their lives to something greater. But when they were abandoned, either by choice or force, something of that devotion remained. Visitors today report strange phenomena: disembodied voices singing Gregorian chants, shadows moving where no light should cast them, even the faint scent of incense long after the last candle burned out. Are these mere tricks of the mind, or could they be traces of the past refusing to let go? From the misty highlands of Scotland to the sun-baked cliffs of Portugal, each of these monasteries has a tale to tell. Some hide relics buried beneath their altars, others guard cryptic inscriptions carved into their walls, and then there are the stories that defy explanation, like the monastery in the Italian Alps, where locals swear they've seen the ghostly figure of a monk still tending to an invisible garden. As we journey through these sites, we'll piece together the puzzles they left behind, exploring not just the history, but the eerie, almost palpable presence that clings to their stones. This isn't just a tour of ruins, it's an invitation to listen closely, to hear the echoes of those who came before us, and to wonder what secrets might still be waiting in the silence. There's a reason why abandoned monasteries hold such a powerful grip on our curiosity. They exist in that rare space between history and mystery, where the past feels almost tangible. Unlike castles or fortresses built for war and power, these were places of quiet contemplation, where every stone was laid with intention, every corridor designed for reflection. That sacred purpose lingers even in decay. Walk through the empty cloisters of a derelict monastery, and you're not just seeing collapsed arches or faded frescoes. You're stepping into a silence that once held prayers, a solitude that once nurtured devotion. It's that contrast between what was and what remains that gives these places their haunting weight. Consider the craftsmanship hidden in their ruins. Many of these monasteries were built during eras when art and faith were inseparable, their walls adorned with intricate carvings, stained glass that caught the light like divine whispers. Even as nature reclaims them, vines snaking through broken windows, those details endure. In the Spanish monastery of San Juan de Duro, the delicate Moorish-inspired arches stand defiant against time, a testament to the blending of cultures that once thrived there. Or take the Scottish Isle of Iona, where the Abbey's weathered Celtic crosses still bear symbols so vivid, they seem to whisper secrets across the centuries. These aren't just relics, they're conversations with the past, waiting for someone to listen. Then there's the isolation, the way so many of these monasteries cling to cliffs, nestle in dense forests, or perch on remote islands. Their seclusion was deliberate, a retreat from the noise of the world, but now that isolation amplifies their eeriness. The Romanian monastery of Arbor, hidden in the Carpathian foothills, feels like a place the modern world forgot. Visitors speak of an almost oppressive quiet, broken only by the wind or the occasional creak of ancient wood. It's easy to see how legends take root in such settings, stories of monks who never left, of treasures buried beneath altars, of chants that echo on moonless nights. Whether you're a historian piecing together fragments of the past or a traveler chasing the thrill of the unknown, these sites offer something rare, a chance to touch the intangible. Perhaps most compelling is the way these monasteries mirror the human experience, their rise and fall, their resilience and fragility. They were built to last, yet time undoes even the grandest intentions. The Benedictine Abbey of Melk in Austria, once a beacon of scholarship, now stands as a monument to both grandeur and impermanence. Its library, with ceilings painted like the heavens, reminds us that knowledge too can fade. But in that fading, there's beauty. The peeling murals, the moss-covered statues, they become more than art. They're proof that even in abandonment, these places still serve a purpose, to make us wonder, to make us feel small in the face of time, and to remind us that every stone has a story if we're willing to hear it. High atop the tidal island of Mont Saint-Michel, where the sea swirls and retreats with the rhythm of the tides, the Abbey's towering spires seem to pierce the veil between past and present. Visitors climbing its worn stone steps often pause, not just from exertion, but from the uncanny sensation of being watched, or worse, listened to. Then, when the last tourist has left and the Abbey falls into silence, the air itself begins to hum. Faint at first, like a distant memory, the sound swells into the unmistakable cadence of Gregorian chant. Voices, neither fully human nor entirely spectral, weave through the nave as if the walls themselves are singing. The phenomenon is no secret. Locals whisper of nights when the tide is high and the moon hangs low, claiming the chants grow louder, as though the monks never truly abandoned their devotions. Scientists have tried to explain it, the Abbey's labyrinthine architecture, its honeycombed stone, all conspiring to trap and replay sounds like a celestial echo chamber. Yet no recording has ever captured the music. It exists only in the moment, heard by those who stand in the right place at the right time, leaving no proof but a lingering sense of awe. What makes the Phantom Choir so haunting isn't just the music itself, but the way it mirrors the Abbey's history. For centuries, this was a place of pilgrimage, where the faithful would journey through treacherous tides to reach its sacred heights. The monks who lived here devoted their lives to copying manuscripts, their ink-stained fingers preserving knowledge while the world outside shifted and burned. Is it so hard to believe that something of their devotion lingers, or perhaps the Abbey, like a great instrument, has absorbed their prayers into its very stones, releasing them when the conditions are just right, a celestial playlist on an endless loop? Then there are the skeptics who point to the wind racing through the cloisters, or the way the sea's roar might distort into something resembling human voices. But even they struggle to explain why the chants follow the precise melodies of medieval hymns, melodies that would have been familiar only to the monks who once called this place home. Whether trick of acoustics or something far older, the Phantom Choir of Mont Saint-Michel remains one of Europe's most enduring enigmas, a reminder that some echoes refuse to fade, even after the voices that made them are long gone. Deep in the Tuscan countryside, where cypress trees stand like silent sentinels, the skeletal remains of San Galgano Abbey rise from the earth, a cathedral without a roof, open to the sky as if in surrender. Among its ruins, one figure draws pilgrims and skeptics alike, a weathered statue of the Virgin Mary, her stone face tilted downward in perpetual sorrow. But it's during storms that the legends come alive. As rain lashes the abbey's hollowed-out walls, droplets gather along the statue's cheeks, tracing paths that look uncannily like tears. Locals have whispered for generations that these aren't just raindrops, they're the Virgin's grief made visible, mourning the slow decay of this once great sanctuary. Science offers its own explanations. Geologists point to the statue's porous material, suggesting capillary action pulls moisture into subtle crevices, creating the illusion of weeping. Yet even they pause when asked why the tears appear only on this particular statue, or why the effect is so hauntingly consistent. The Abbey's history adds layers to the mystery. Founded in the 12th century by a repentant knight Galgano, who famously plunged his sword into a rock to renounce violence, the site straddles the line between fact and folklore. That very sword, still embedded in stone within a nearby chapel, draws comparisons to Arthurian legend, blurring the boundaries between faith and fairy tale. What makes the crying statue so compelling isn't just the phenomenon itself, but the way it mirrors the abbey's fate. San Galgano was once a thriving center of Cistercian monks, its vaults echoing with chants, its scriptorium bustling with scribes. But by the 16th century, it lay abandoned, its treasures looted, its roof stripped away. The statue's tears seem to echo that loss, a silent lament for the piety and purpose that once filled these walls. Visitors who brave the stormy nights swear the air thickens with something beyond weather, a heaviness that clings like guilt. Then there are those who come seeking more than answers. Some kneel before the statue, pressing handkerchiefs to the damp stone, believing the tears hold healing properties. Others report fleeting visions in the downpour, shadows that resolve for a heartbeat into robed figures or the faintest strain of plainsong beneath the thunder. Whether trick of light or lingering devotion, the effect is undeniable. San Galgano doesn't just whisper its secrets, it weeps them, drop by drop, as if the stones themselves remember what we've forgotten. The grand halls of Melk Abbey stretch like a golden labyrinth above the Danube, its Baroque splendor untouched by time except for one forgotten wing. Tucked away from the tourist paths, the Abbey's abandoned annex feels like a rupture in history. Here, the air grows heavy, the light dimmer, as if the walls themselves are holding their breath. Visitors who venture into these silent corridors often leave with the same unsettling account: shadows that move against the light. Not just any shadows, figures draped in tattered robes, their forms flickering between the pillars like candle flames in a draught. Some claim to have heard the rustle of fabric or the faintest shuffle of sandaled feet, though no living soul stands there. Melk's history gives these sightings an eerie weight. Founded in the 11th century, the abbey survived sieges, fires, and the upheavals of war. In the 17th century, a blaze nearly consumed it entirely, forcing monks to rebuild from the ashes. Could those shadowy forms be echoes of the brothers who perished in the flames, still tending to their sacred duties? Or perhaps they're remnants of the 18th century monks who hid priceless manuscripts here during Napoleon's march, guarding knowledge even in death. The annex itself holds clues, scorch marks on the ceiling, patches of wall where frescoes were hastily whitewashed to conceal them from looters. Every scar tells a story, and the shadows seem to emerge from these very wounds. Skeptics argue it's all a trick of perception, the way afternoon light slants through the high windows, casting elongated shapes that dance with the wind. But those who have seen the figures up close describe details that defy explanation. The hint of a cowl pulled low over a face that isn't there, the way the shadows sometimes pause as if listening. One visitor, a historian specializing in medieval liturgy, swore she saw a figure holding something resembling a psalter, its ghostly fingers tracing the lines of an invisible page. When she approached, it dissolved into the wall, leaving behind only the scent of aged parchment. What makes the shadow monks of Melk so unnerving isn't just their appearance, but their silence. Unlike the phantom choirs or weeping statues of other sites, these figures don't sing or weep, they watch. It's as if the annex exists in a liminal space where the boundary between past and present wears thin, and the monk's devotion transcends time itself. Whether you believe them to be spirits, echoes, or mere tricks of the light, one thing is certain: in Melk's forgotten corners, the past isn't dead, it's waiting. There's a particular kind of silence in Poblet Monastery, thick, deliberate, almost alive. Step into its scriptorium, where monks once bent over parchment by candlelight, and you'll feel it press against your ears like a weight. This was a place of absolute quiet, where even the scrape of a quill or the turning of a page was considered a disruption. Yet today, visitors lean in, straining to catch the sounds that defy that centuries-old rule: whispers. Not the murmurs of tourists or the rustle of wind, but clear, rhythmic Latin phrases, as if someone is reciting scripture just out of sight. The first recorded account dates back to the 19th century, when a visiting scholar cataloguing the monastery's archives swore he heard the unmistakable cadence of the Vulgate Bible drifting from an empty corner. Since then, the phenomenon has only grown more persistent. Some claim the whispers match specific psalms or liturgical texts, the very ones painstakingly copied here during the monastery's medieval heyday. Others report catching snippets of conversation, like monks discussing a particularly intricate illumination. The most chilling detail: the voices never overlap. They come one at a time, measured and deliberate, as if obeying the scriptorium's ancient rule of silence even in death. Acoustics experts have tried to unravel the mystery. Poblet's architecture, with its high vaults and narrow corridors, creates unusual sound channels capable of carrying voices far beyond their source. But no one can explain why the whispers only recur in this one room, or why they're always in Latin, a language rarely spoken here since the monastery's suppression in the 1800s. Historians point to the scriptorium's former significance. For over 400 years, this was the heartbeat of Poblet, where monks preserved not just religious texts, but scientific treatises, philosophical works, even music. The labor was grueling. A single manuscript could take years. Is it so far-fetched to think that such devotion might leave an imprint? Then there are the skeptics, who argue the whispers are a trick of suggestion. After all, Poblet's reputation precedes it. Visitors arrive expecting to hear something, and the human mind is adept at weaving patterns from noise. But even the most hardened doubters falter when the whispers respond. In 2011, a linguist conducting a spectral analysis claimed to have recorded a direct answer, a whispered verse from the book of Proverbs, after she recited its first line aloud. The recording, though faint, sent shivers through the academic community. Was it an echo of the past or something far stranger? What lingers in Poblet's scriptorium isn't just sound, it's the ghost of an obsession. These monks believed their work was sacred, that every copied word brought them closer to the divine. In a way, the whispers are the perfect echo, not of voices, but of devotion so intense it etched itself into the very stones. Whether you hear them or not, one thing is certain in this silent sanctuary: the past is still speaking, and if you listen closely, it might just choose its words for you. Cluny Abbey was once the beating heart of medieval Europe, a spiritual colossus whose influence stretched across kingdoms. Today, its ruins stand as fractured monuments to that lost grandeur, but on certain nights, something extraordinary stirs within the crumbling arches. Visitors lingering after dark report the same uncanny spectacle: a line of robed figures gliding through the nave, their faces obscured by deep hoods, each holding a candle that casts no light. The procession moves in perfect unison, their footsteps silent against the ancient flagstones before dissolving into the shadows as abruptly as they appeared. Those who have witnessed it describe an overwhelming sense of reverence, as if they've stumbled upon a sacred rite never meant for mortal eyes. Historians recognize these spectral marchers instantly. The slow, deliberate pacing matches descriptions of Cluny's medieval liturgical processions, where monks would file through the Abbey chanting psalms, their candles symbolizing the light of faith piercing the darkness. These rituals were the Abbey's lifeblood, elaborate performances of devotion meant to awe both worshippers and kings, yet the ghostly version lacks sound. No chants, no rustling robes, just that eerie, wordless advance. Some speculate the silence is a relic of Cluny's strict discipline, where even processions were governed by rigid rules of decorum. Others wonder if the sound simply hasn't survived whatever fracture in time allows these figures to reappear. Then there's the timing. The processions only manifest at midnight, the hour traditionally associated with Christ's birth, and, not coincidentally, the moment Cluny's monks would rise for matins, the night office. It's as though the Abbey's very stones remember the rhythm of prayer, replaying it for those who happen to be present. Skeptics dismiss the sightings as elaborate hoaxes or the result of moonlight filtering through the ruins' jagged outlines. But how to explain the candles? Their flames burn unnaturally still, unaffected by wind, and leave no wax residue behind. A team of paranormal investigators once set up thermal cameras, only to capture fleeting cold spots moving in formation precisely where witnesses placed the figures. What makes Cluny's ghost so haunting isn't just their appearance, but their persistence. The Abbey was systematically dismantled after the French Revolution, its stones looted for building projects, its altars smashed. Yet the procession defies that erasure, as if the monks' devotion was too potent to be scattered. Perhaps that's the true echo here, not just an image of the past, but a refusal to let oblivion have the final word. Whether you believe these figures are spirits, residual energy, or something beyond our understanding, one thing is clear: Cluny's heart still beats, if only for those willing to stand in the dark and wait. High in the mist-shrouded peaks of Bulgaria's Rila mountains, an abandoned bell tower clings to the edge of the monastery it once served. Its wooden beams grown with age, its iron bell green with patina untouched for decades. Yet on still mornings, when the valley below holds its breath, a deep, resonant toll shatters the silence. No rope swings, no hand pulls, the bell rings on its own, as if stirred by something beyond the physical world. Local lore is unwavering. The sound belongs to Saint Ivan of Rila, the 10th century hermit who founded this holy refuge. They say his spirit lingers in the mountains, watching over the monastery he carved from wilderness. When the bell tolls, it's a warning or a blessing depending on who you ask. Pilgrims claim it chimes before storms or political upheavals, a celestial alarm echoing through time. Others insist it rings only for those pure of heart, a test the devout long to pass. Engineers have scrutinized the tower for hidden mechanisms, seismic activity, even wind patterns. None fit. The bell's movement defies physics. It swings with purpose, not randomness, as if guided by invisible fingers. The clapper strikes the same spot each time, producing a note so pure it lingers in the air like a sigh. In 2005, a team of acoustic specialists camped beside the tower for weeks, rigging sensors to capture the phenomenon. The bell remained stubbornly silent until the night they packed their equipment. As they descended the mountain path, a single, thunderous peal rolled down the slopes behind them, unanswered by any natural force. What chills skeptics most isn't the sound itself, but the consistency of its meaning. For centuries, the bell's toll has been woven into Rila's history, recorded in monks' diaries as an omen during invasions, a comfort during plagues. In the 1800s, when Ottoman forces ransacked the monastery, survivors swore the bell rang continuously as flames licked the walls, a dirge for the devastation. Today, the tower stands apart from the rebuilt complex, its stones blackened by that long-ago fire. Yet the bell, though scarred, remains uncracked, a paradox that fuels the legend. Perhaps the most haunting detail lies in the silence between tolls. Unlike ordinary bells that fade into echoes, Rila's note ends abruptly, as if severed by some unseen hand. Visitors describe the sound as both ancient and immediate, like a voice calling from across centuries. Whether it's the saints' enduring vigilance or some trick of the mountain air, one thing is certain. In Rila's abandoned tower, faith and mystery ring louder than any explanation. Whitby Abbey's altar doesn't just bear stains, it wears them like a scar, dark and unyielding, as if the stone itself refuses to forget. Perched on the cliffs of North Yorkshire, this Gothic skeleton has watched over the North Sea for centuries, its arches framing storms and sunsets with equal grandeur. But step inside the roofless nave, and your eyes will inevitably be drawn to the altar. No amount of scrubbing, no chemical treatment has ever lifted those deep, rust-colored streaks. Local guides will tell you they're the remnants of a single night in 1539, when Henry VIII's men stormed the abbey, dragging monks from their prayers. The story goes that one brother, refusing to surrender the sacred space, met his end right there, his blood seeping into the stone as though the altar itself mourned. Yet science offers a colder explanation. Geologists suggest the stains could be iron oxide leaching from the limestone, a natural phenomenon accelerated by centuries of salt-laden wind. But even they pause when asked why the discoloration forms such precise, almost intentional patterns like fingers dragged across the surface. And then there are the whispers. Visitors who linger near the altar after dusk report sudden, biting chills, as if stepping into an invisible pool of icy air. Some claim to hear fragmented sounds, a choked gasp, the metallic clatter of a dropped chalice, though no source is ever found. Paranormal investigators have logged spikes in electromagnetic activity here, with one team capturing an audio anomaly. A faint, guttural whisper in Old English, the words Sanctus Interruptus, wholly interrupted. The Abbey's history adds layers to the horror. Long before the dissolution, Whitby was a place of spiritual extremes. It was here, in the 7th century, that the Synod of Whitby split the Christian Church in England, a debate so fierce it nearly came to bloodshed even then. Could the altar's stains be a palimpsest of violence, each era adding its own mark? Modern visitors often describe an oppressive weight near the site, a sense of being watched by something angry. Others, however, feel an odd reverence, as though the stones are still conducting some interrupted sacrament, the echoes of devotion and defiance forever tangled. Then there's the curious case of the stains' behavior. They darken before storms, as if the stone remembers the blood more vividly under low pressure. During a lunar eclipse in 2019, a photographer claimed the patches glistened, though the night was dry. When he touched the surface, his fingers came away clean, but his thermometer recorded a 15-degree drop in temperature. Whether natural or supernatural, the altar's defiance of explanation is what lingers. It refuses to be cleansed, refuses to fade, as though the very concept of forgetting is anathema. In a world that moves on so quickly, Whitby's altar stands as a stubborn reminder. Some wounds are carved too deep for time to heal. Nestled in the misty embrace of Ireland's Connemara Mountains, Kylemore Abbey's crumbling chapel holds a secret that defies both time and reason. High on what remains of the altar, a single flame flickers, untouched by wind, unshaken by rain, and most unnerving of all, unbound by the laws of nature. No wax pools beneath it, no wick chars as it burns. Locals call it the Eternal Flame, a beacon of devotion lit by Sister Margaret, the last nun to abandon the Abbey when it fell into ruin. Legend claims she vowed to keep praying long after the walls collapsed around her, and this light is her promise made visible. The science behind the phenomenon is just as fascinating as the myth. Biologists point to a rare strain of bioluminescent fungus found in the chapel's damp stone, capable of emitting an eerie, steady glow. Similar organisms thrive in other abandoned sites, their ghostly light a quirk of chemistry rather than divinity. But here's the catch: the flame at Kylemore behaves unlike any known fungus. It doesn't pulse or fade with the seasons. It doesn't spread or retreat like organic growths typically do. Instead, it burns with the consistency of a candle, warm, golden, and eerily focused, as if guided by an invisible hand. Then there are the pilgrims. For over a century, they've trekked to the Abbey, drawn by stories of the flame's healing properties. Some leave with accounts of visions, a veiled figure kneeling in the shadows, the scent of beeswax thick in the air despite the absence of candles. Others swear the light responds to prayer, flaring brighter when hymns are sung or dimming when skeptics approach. In 1982, a team of researchers attempted to document the flame's properties, only for their equipment to malfunction inexplicably. Their photographs revealed nothing but an orb of light, suspended mid-air with no discernible source. What makes Kylemore's flame so compelling isn't just its persistence, but the way it mirrors the Abbey's history. Founded as a Benedictine refuge in the 19th century, this was a place of unwavering faith, where nuns weathered Ireland's harshest storms, both literal and political. When the order finally left, the chapel became a shell, but the flame remained, as if the spirit of the place refused to be extinguished. Whether you see it as a miracle, a microbial marvel, or something in between, one thing is certain. In Kylemore's hollowed-out sanctuary, the line between devotion and mystery burns brighter than ever. Batalha Monastery's vaulted ceilings were built to amplify human voices to carry hymns heavenward in a crescendo of devotion. But in the depths of winter, when frost clings to the stone and breath hangs visible in the air, something far stranger happens. Visitors stepping into the chapel of the founder report hearing a single, unwavering note, a sound neither rising nor fading, but suspended in the air like a musical artifact frozen in time. Some describe it as the ghost of a chant, a solitary voice caught mid-prayer. Others insist it's more like the hum of a tuning fork, vibrating at a frequency that bypasses logic and pierces straight through to the spine. The phenomenon defies every law of acoustics. Natural echoes decay, sound waves dissipate, yet here the note lingers, sometimes for minutes, as if the monastery's very bones refuse to let it go. Scientists have mapped the chapel's reverberations, noting how its octagonal design and ribbed vaults create unusual sonic pockets. But none can explain why the effect occurs exclusively in winter, or why the pitch remains constant, a haunting D-sharp, eerily close to the tonus peregrinus used in medieval Gregorian chant. Even more perplexing, the sound seems to originate from no particular spot. It simply exists, filling the space like cold air. Then there's the monastery's unfinished chapels, their jagged arches open to the sky. Legend claims the builders abandoned the project after hearing prophecies of doom, leaving behind a skeletal masterpiece half consumed by time. Could the frozen chant be their unfinished hymn? Locals whisper of a 15th century monk who vowed to sing without ceasing until the chapel was completed, a vow cut short when he vanished midwinter, leaving only his frost-rhymed psalter behind. On the coldest nights when the note swells loudest, some claim to see breath pluming from empty pews, as if an invisible choir has taken up the refrain. Skeptics argue it's wind threading through the ruins or the groan of contracting stone in the cold. But those who have stood in the chapel when the note strikes speak of something deeper, a vibration that seems to resonate not just in the ears but in the chest. In 2018, a musician attempting to record the sound found her equipment captured only silence, even as the note rang clear to everyone present. The monastery's caretakers have grown accustomed to the bewildered faces of visitors emerging from the chapel, rubbing their ears as though waking from a dream. Perhaps that's the most unsettling part. The sound doesn't feel like an echo of the past, but a fragment of time itself, lodged in the present like a splinter of eternity. Whether acoustical fluke or divine interruption, one thing is certain: Batalha has frozen. Chant refuses to melt away. The air inside St. Gallen Abbey Library carries the weight of centuries, not just in the scent of aged parchment, but in the whispers that seem to cling to its vaulted ceilings. This Swiss treasure trove once safeguarded some of the rarest manuscripts in medieval Europe, from illuminated gospels to philosophical treatises thought lost to time. Yet wander its silent halls today, and you might catch an unsettling rhythm beneath the quiet, the crisp, unmistakable sound of pages turning. Not the slow creak of a book being opened by a visitor, but the rapid, purposeful flutter of someone or something skimming through text with urgent focus. Staff have learned to recognize it by now. They'll check the surveillance cameras only to find the reading rooms empty, the antique desks undisturbed. What makes these phantom readings so chilling is their precision. The sounds cluster around specific sections of the library: theology, medicine, ancient astronomy, as if an invisible scholar is methodically working through a research list. Historians note that these were the very subjects most heavily studied by the Abbey's medieval monks, who painstakingly copied and annotated each volume. Some claim the echoes align with known gaps in the collection, texts lost to fire or theft over the centuries. It's as though the library itself remembers what's missing, replaying the act of reading them one last time. Then there's the temperature. Visitors lingering near the 12th century manuscripts often report sudden drops, their breath visible in air that was warm moments before. Thermographic scans reveal cold spots that drift along the shelves like a slow-moving reader pausing to pull down a volume. In 2014, a visiting linguist swore she saw breath fogging the glass case of a 9th century psalter, a book known to have been handled by Notka the Stammerer, a monk whose translations shaped medieval scholarship. When she alerted the curator, the glass was pristine, the room still. Skeptics point to the Abbey's aging infrastructure, the way its timber beams expand and contract with humidity, the drafts that snake through centuries-old ventilation shafts. But even they can't explain why the page-turning sounds follow the cadence of actual reading, complete with pauses as if to ponder a passage. Library assistants have documented instances where the sounds stop abruptly when spoken to, as if caught in the act. Others describe sensing a presence that retreats when approached, leaving behind the faintest trace of iron gall ink in the air, a scent no modern book would carry. Perhaps the most haunting theory comes from the Abbey's own records. In the 1500s, as the Reformation threatened Catholic strongholds, monks reportedly walled up portions of the collection to protect them. Some of these hidden troves were later recovered, but many remain missing. Could the phantom readings be echoes of those long-ago scholars, still guarding their treasures in some unseen alcove? Or is the library itself a kind of palimpsest, its stones and shelves imprinted with the urgency of those who believed knowledge was worth preserving at any cost? One thing is certain: in St. Gallen's hallowed halls, the past isn't just remembered, it's still hard at work. The blue of Voronet Monastery's frescoes isn't just a color, it's a phenomenon. Known as Voronet blue, This otherworldly hue, derived from crushed lapis lazuli, has adorned the monastery's walls since the 15th century, outlasting wars, weather, and time itself. But in recent decades, something unsettling has emerged from that vibrant backdrop: droplets, not the slow seep of damp stone or the predictable trickle of condensation, but something far more deliberate. On certain mornings, visitors arrive to find the saints' faces streaked with moisture, their jewel-toned robes glistening as if soaked with sorrow. The locals have a name for it: plantal zigurilla, the weeping of the walls, and they swear it's no accident of nature. Science, of course, offers its own explanations. Conservators point to the monastery's location in Romania's humid Carpathian foothills, where temperature fluctuations cause moisture to gather on the porous frescoes. The effect is amplified by the unique chemical composition of the pigments, which interact with humidity in unexpected ways. Yet even the most pragmatic experts pause when asked why the tears follow such uncanny patterns. They don't appear randomly, they trace the contours of the painted figures, sliding down cheeks or pooling in outstretched hands as if guided by an unseen brush. And then there's the timing. The weeping intensifies during moments of societal upheaval, political scandals, environmental disasters, even the closure of nearby churches. In 2017, when a fire devastated a neighboring monastery, Voronezh's frescoes dripped for weeks, the blue running like ink across the stone. The monastery's history deepens the mystery. Built in just 3 months in 1488, legend claims its frescoes were painted by a single artist working under divine inspiration. The scenes are apocalyptic angels and demons locked in eternal struggle, saints ascending amid swirling cobalt skies. Some believe the frescoes were never meant to be static. They're a living warning, reacting to the moral state of the world. Pilgrims who have witnessed the weeping describe an overwhelming sense of guilt, as though the walls are holding up a mirror to modern failings. Others report fleeting visions, the painted eyes of Christ following them, or the faintest whisper of liturgical chant when no one else is near. Skeptics argue it's all psychological priming. Visitors arrive expecting a supernatural experience, and the human mind excels at connecting dots where none exist. But even the doubtful struggle to explain the fresco's most chilling detail. The tears are saltier than the local water supply. Laboratory tests reveal trace minerals not found in the region's rain or groundwater, leaving scientists baffled. Could the walls be drawing moisture from some deeper, older source, a hidden well, perhaps, or even the long-dried tears of the artists who painted them? What lingers at Voronezh isn't just moisture, but meaning. In a world that often feels unmoored from the sacred, these weeping frescoes force a confrontation with the past. They ask us, if stones can mourn, what does that say about the living? Whether divine intervention or a quirk of chemistry, one thing is certain: the blue walls of Voronezh refuse to stay silent. They speak in droplets, in salt, in the quiet insistence that some wounds, even those painted centuries ago, never truly heal. The abandoned wing of Klosterneuburg Monastery holds its breath most nights, empty, silent, a hollow shell of what was once a vibrant spiritual hub. But when the calendar aligns with medieval feast days, the air thickens with something inexplicable. A dense, sweet fog of incense rolls through the corridors, so potent it clings to clothing for hours. Then comes the chanting, deep, resonant Latin verses rising from nowhere, filling the vaulted ceilings as if an entire choir stands just out of sight. The hymns are unmistakable 12th century Gregorian chants, their melodies preserved in the monastery's own archives. Yet when investigators rush toward the sound, they find only stillness, the scent lingering like a taunt. Historical records offer a chilling clue. This wing was once the heart of Klosterneuburg's liturgical life, where monks celebrated feast days with all-night vigils, their voices weaving through clouds of frankincense. The rituals ended abruptly in the 1700s when a fire forced the order to abandon this section, but the echoes refused to fade. Archivists comparing witness accounts made a startling discovery. The phantom hymns align precisely with the liturgical calendar of the 12th century, not the modern one. It's as though the stones remember a rhythm forgotten by the living. Skeptics argue the phenomenon could be explained by trapped scents released by humidity, or even pranksters hiding speakers in the ruins. But the incense's composition defies easy dismissal. Chemists analyzing residue on the walls identified a blend of myrrh and storax ingredients used exclusively in medieval Austrian monasteries, now nearly impossible to source. As for the chanting, audio engineers have tried for decades to pinpoint its origin. Their equipment picks up nothing but empty air, even as the hymns swell loud enough to vibrate in the chest. Then there are the witnesses who have seen more than heard. In 2009, a restorer working late reported flickering lights in the abandoned chapel. Peering through a cracked door, she described robed figures kneeling in formation, their backs bent in prayer. The vision lasted only seconds before dissolving into moonlight. Others swear they felt unseen hands pressing against their backs, guiding them toward the chapel door, always at midnight, always on the old feast days. What makes Klosterneuburg's echoes so unsettling isn't just their precision, but their insistence. These aren't random whispers or disjointed sounds. They're a full sensory replay of devotion, as if the past has found a crack in time. Whether you believe it's residual energy, a divine imprint, or something beyond our understanding, one thing is clear: in this forgotten wing, the monks' vows still hold. Their prayers haven't ended, they've simply slipped into a rhythm only the stones can hear. Deep in the heart of Portugal's Alcobaça Monastery, where the tombs of star-crossed lovers Pedro and Ini Circumflex lie eternally entwined, an unsettling presence lingers in the shadows. Visitors who wander the cloisters after dusk often stop mid-step, struck by the unmistakable sensation of being watched. It's not just imagination. Many report seeing tall, indistinct figures standing motionless along the arches, their forms blending into the stone like sentinels carved from darkness itself. These aren't fleeting glimpses. The figures remain unwavering, as if keeping vigil over the lovers whose tragic tale stains the monastery's history. What chills the spine isn't their presence, but their demeanor. Unlike typical ghostly apparitions that evoke fear, these shadows exude a quiet solemnity. Some visitors describe an almost protective energy, as though the figures are less hauntings than guardians. Historians note that the monastery's monks fiercely defended Pedro and Ini Circumflex forbidden love, even after their brutal deaths. Could these shadows be echoes of that loyalty, a vow that outlasted the centuries? The timing adds weight to the theory. Sightings peak on the anniversaries of the lovers' deaths, when the cloisters are draped in silence and candlelight. Then there's the strangeness of the shadows' behavior. They never approach or retreat. They don't flicker like torchlight or fade like mist. They simply stand, anchored to specific spots, near the tombs, along the choir stalls, facing the altar, as if stationed there by some unseen command. In 2019, a thermal imaging study captured cold spots exactly where witnesses placed the figures, yet no drafts or structural flaws could explain the temperature drops. Even skeptics admit the precision is uncanny, but the most haunting detail lies in the reaction of those who have encountered them. Many speak of an unexpected calm, a feeling of being allowed to witness something sacred. One woman, visiting from Brazil, swore a shadow stepped aside as she approached Ini Circumflex's tomb, as though granting her permission to pay respects. Others recall hearing a faint, rhythmic breathing, not their own, when standing near the figures, a sound that matched the measured pace of medieval Gregorian chant. Alcabos's guardian shadows defy easy categorization. They're not residual hauntings replaying the past, nor are they the restless dead. They exist in a liminal space somewhere between memory and duty. Whether you believe them to be spirits, psychic imprints, or mere tricks of light, one thing is certain. In these hallowed cloisters, love and devotion have etched themselves into the very air. And some vows, it seems, are too sacred to ever be broken. The dormitories of Jasna Gora Monastery stand empty now, their wooden bunks stripped bare, their walls stripped of the childish laughter they once sheltered. But on certain nights, when the wind dies down and the candles in the chapel gutter low, a sound drifts through the corridors, soft, lilting, unmistakably human. It's a lullaby, though not one any living soul can name. The melody is simple, almost fragile, rising and falling like a breath. Those who have heard it swear it carries the faintest tremor, as if the singer's voice is worn thin by centuries of repetition. History offers a clue to the song's origin. In the 1600s, when plagues ravaged Poland, Jasna Gora became an unlikely refuge. The monks threw open their doors to orphans, transforming these very dormitories into a sanctuary. Among them was Brother Thomas, a former musician who traded his lute for a rosary. Chronicles describe him pacing the halls at night, humming to children too feverish or frightened to sleep. When the plague finally receded, claiming Thomas among its last victims, the children insisted his lullaby lingered, a whisper in the dark when nightmares stirred. What chills modern visitors isn't just the song's persistence, but its peculiarities. Ethnomusicologists have scoured medieval hymnaries and folk traditions, yet the melody matches nothing in the historical record. Its structure defies classification, blending Slavic cadences with a monastic drone that feels both intimate and ancient. Some claim it shifts slightly with each hearing, as though adapting to the listener's need. A German tourist in 2018 swore the tune morphed into a Brahms-like refrain when she hummed along, a detail that sent scholars scrambling for connections that don't exist. Then there's the cold. Witnesses describe pockets of air so frigid they raise gooseburns, localized around empty beds where the singing seems loudest. Thermal scans reveal no drafts or structural flaws to explain it. During a paranormal investigation in 2021, a voice recorder left in the dormitory captured something even stranger. The lullaby's final note stretching endlessly before dissolving into what analysts identified as a child's sigh. The recording lasted 12 seconds longer than the physical tape could hold, a glitch that defied every attempt at replication. But perhaps the most haunting detail lies in who hears it. Parents who have lost children often report the lullaby's clearest manifestations, as if the melody seeks out those who need it most. A grieving mother from Krakow once broke down in the dormitory, certain she recognized the voice as her own son's. Others describe an overwhelming urge to join in, their lips forming words they've never known. Whether it's Thomas's compassion echoing through time or something more mysterious, one thing is certain: in Jasna Gora's hollowed halls, comfort doesn't fade. It waits, patient as a prayer, for the next soul brave enough to listen in the dark. There's a pulse in the walls of Crew's Abbey, slow, steady, and impossible to ignore. Press your palm against the ancient stone in its oldest corridors, and you'll feel it, a subtle expansion and contraction, as though the very masonry is drawing breath. The rhythm is unmistakable, matching the cadence of a resting heartbeat, deep and unhurried. Scientists have traced the phenomenon to underground streams, their water pressure shifting the foundation in minute waves. But the monks who have lived here for nearly 9 centuries know better. To them, the walls aren't just reacting to geology, they're alive. Walk these halls at dusk when the last tour groups have left and the effect intensifies. The air itself seems to thicken with each exhalation, carrying the faintest scent of damp earth and beeswax. Locals swear the breathing quickens during storms, as if the Abbey is bracing itself against the wind. In 2016, a team of acoustics researchers set up seismic monitors, expecting to record predictable water movement. Instead, they detected patterns that defied explanation, fluctuations too precise to be random, too rhythmic to be mere coincidence. The data suggested something almost intentional, as though the stones were responding to an unseen force. Then there are the legends. Medieval chronicles speak of a monk who claimed to hear whispers in the walls, murmurs in Latin that matched the Abbey's oldest prayers. Modern visitors report similar experiences, not voices exactly, but a vibration that thrums through the floor, resonating in the chest like the lowest note of a pipe organ. Some say it feels like the building is humming, its melody tuned to a frequency just beyond human hearing. The monks, ever practical, have woven the phenomenon into their daily rituals. They light candles in the breathing corridors, treating the walls not as inert stone, but as a silent congregation, sharing in their devotions. What makes Hyligen Cruise's living walls so unsettling isn't just their movement, but their persistence. This abbey has survived fires, wars, and the dissolution of empires. Its stones have borne witness to plagues and pilgrimages, to whispered confessions and triumphant chants. Through it all, the breathing has never ceased. Is it the earth's hidden waters, as science insists, or could it be something older, something sacred, the Abbey's soul, as the monks believe, still sighing with the weight of 900 years of faith? One thing is certain, in these hallowed halls, even the walls refuse to stay silent. They breathe, they hum, they remember, and if you stand still long enough, you might just feel them listening back. As daylight fades over the ruins of Fountains Abbey, the crumbling arches cast long, delicate shadows across the emerald lawns, but not all of them stay still. Visitors lingering past sunset report something extraordinary. Dark figures gliding in perfect unison, their movements fluid and graceful, as though dancing to music only they can hear. The forms lack definition, shimmering like heat haze, yet their patterns are unmistakable medieval circle dances, the kind depicted in illuminated manuscripts from the Abbey's heyday. Some witnesses describe the shadows pausing mid-step, as if acknowledging an invisible partner before twirling into the twilight. The phenomenon isn't random. Historical records reveal Fountains Abbey hosted lavish feast day celebrations, where monks and villagers would dance late into the night. Local folklore, however, tells a different tale of the Green Children, a mythical pair said to have emerged from underground caverns near the Abbey, their steps so light they left no footprints. To this day, Yorkshire farmers whisper about fairy rings appearing overnight in the Abbey's meadows, their mushrooms forming perfect circles where the earth seems to hum with energy. Could the dancing shadows be echoes of those ancient revels, or something far older, woven into the land itself? What makes these apparitions so mesmerizing is their interaction with the ruins. Unlike typical ghostly sightings, the shadows don't cling to specific locations, they flow. They'll waltz through a broken window one moment, then reappear near the cloisters, their movements synced to the rhythm of the wind through the hollowed-out nave. In 2022, a photographer captured the shadows at their most vivid during a summer solstice, their elongated forms stretching across the grass like ink spilled on parchment. When she enlarged the images, she noticed something chilling. The shadows weren't cast by anything visible. The light source didn't align with the setting sun or the Abbey's remaining structures. Skeptics argue the effect is pareidolia, the mind's tendency to find patterns in randomness amplified by the Abbey's dramatic decay. The way ivy drapes over broken columns, the play of moonlight on uneven stone, it's all fertile ground for optical illusions. But even the most pragmatic observers struggle to explain why the shadows appear most frequently near the old refectory, where records confirm dancing was once forbidden. Is it defiance echoing through time or merely a quirk of the terrain? Then there's the strangeness of their behavior. Unlike residual hauntings which replay like broken records, Fountain's Abbey's shadows seem aware. Multiple witnesses describe them pausing when approached, as if startled, before dissolving into the ruins. A group of university students conducting an overnight study in 2019 claimed the shadows mimicked their movements for a breathless minute, raising arms when they did, stepping forward in eerie unison before vanishing into the Abbey's famous cellarium, a space so acoustically perfect even whispers carry. Perhaps the most haunting detail lies in the absence of fear. Those who have encountered the dancers rarely describe dread instead. They speak of an almost irresistible urge to join in, as if the shadows are extending an invitation across centuries. Whether fragments of memory trapped in stone or something more mysterious, one thing is certain. In Fountain's Abbey's golden hour hush, the past doesn't just linger, it dances. The choir loft of Moulbron Monastery holds its breath between notes. Visitors climbing the worn spiral stairs often freeze mid-step, struck by a sudden, soaring melody. A lone male voice singing a hymn so pure it seems to hang suspended in the air. Then, just as the chorus should swell to its climax, the sound stops, not fades, not weakens. It's severed like a thread snapped under tension, leaving behind a silence so thick it presses against the eardrums. This isn't the work of hidden speakers or clever acoustics. The hymn has a nema, veni, creator spiritus, and a history as old as the monastery itself. Records from 1534 describe a young monk named Brother Elias, who defiantly sang the hymn as Protestant reformers stormed the cloister, demanding the monks renounce their Catholic faith. According to eyewitness accounts, his voice rang out even as the mob reached him, cutting off mid-word when a blow struck him down. The reformers later documented an odd detail. Though the attack happened in the courtyard, the hymn's final note seemed to linger in the choir loft, echoing long after Elias's lips fell silent. Modern acousticians have mapped the loft's peculiar sound dynamics. The vaulted ceiling, with its honeycomb of tiny air pockets, acts like a natural recording device, capable of trapping and replaying certain frequencies under precise conditions. Humidity, temperature, even the angle of sunlight through the rose window, all conspire to create the illusion of a voice frozen in time. But science stumbles when asked why the hymn always stops at the same moment, or why the pitch-perfect Latin matches 16th century pronunciation rather than modern cadences. Then there are the witnesses who have heard more than just sound. In 2015, a musicologist studying Gregorian chant described feeling a hand on his shoulder as the hymn played, though no one stood behind him. The touch vanished with the music, leaving a patch of his robe damp, as if brushed by fingers still slick with sweat from centuries-old exertion. Others report the scent of melted candle wax and feverish skin odors absent from the meticulously preserved space. What chills historians most isn't the phantom hymn itself, but what it represents. Moulbron survived the Reformation by adapting, its monks gradually adopting Protestant practices while preserving the monastery's physical heart. Elias's unfinished song embodies that tension, a moment of devotion so fervent it fractured time. Whether acoustic anomaly or sacred stubbornness, one thing is clear: in Moulbron's choir loft, faith doesn't end. It waits, poised between one breath and the next, for someone to finish what was started. The ruins of Monte Cassino don't just remember the war, they bleed with it. Every year, on the anniversary of the Abbey's devastating bombardment in 1944, visitors climbing the mountain path notice something unnatural. The ancient stones, still scarred by artillery fire, emit a faint, rust-colored glow under the moonlight, as if the very rock is weeping blood. Scientists attribute it to iron-rich minerals in the limestone, reacting to humidity and temperature shifts. But those who have stood in the shadow of those walls after midnight swear the explanation feels hollow. The glow pulses, they say, like a heartbeat, and if you listen closely, the wind carries more than just dust, it carries voices. The whispers are what unsettle even the most hardened historians. Not the chaotic cries of battle, but the measured cadence of prayer. Latin phrases, fractured but recognizable, rise from the rubble like smoke. Some match the liturgy of the hours, the same prayers Benedictine monks recited here for 14 centuries before Allied bombs reduced the abbey to ruins. Survivors of the bombing, now elderly, speak of hearing them too, not as echoes but as conversations, half-finished sentences hanging in the air as if the speakers were interrupted mid-word. One woman who hid in the crypt as the walls collapsed above her insists she still hears the abbot's voice calling the monks to vespers, his tone urgent, as though he's racing against time. What makes these echoes so chilling is their specificity. The whispers cluster around locations tied to the abbey's final moments, the choir stalls where monks were singing when the first shell hit, the scriptorium where scribes frantically tried to save manuscripts, the courtyard where refugees huddled between explosions. Audio analysts have attempted to capture the sounds, but the recordings always come back garbled, as if the voices exist just outside the range of human hearing. In 2007, a team of parapsychologists set up infrared cameras, hoping to trace the source. The footage revealed nothing but empty ruins, yet their microphones picked up a clear, trembling voice reciting the Confiteor, the medieval confession of sins, in perfect ecclesiastical Latin. Then there are the shadows. Visitors describe fleeting silhouettes darting through the moonlit wreckage, not the solid forms of typical ghost sightings, but flickering impressions, like figures caught in the flash of an explosion. They move with purpose, kneeling, reaching, dragging invisible burdens before vanishing into the walls. Local guides refuse to walk the ruins after dark, not out of fear but respect. To them, these aren't ghosts, they're unfinished prayers lingering where faith and violence collided. Perhaps the most haunting detail lies in the timing. The whispers crescendo at 3:15 a.m., the exact hour the bombardment began. For 60 seconds, the air thrums with overlapping voices, a cacophony of devotion and desperation, before snapping back to silence. Whether trick of acoustics or something far older, one thing is certain: Monte Cassino's wounds haven't closed. The stones remember, the air remembers. And on those blood-red nights, if you stand very still, you might just hear what history couldn't erase. High on the jagged peaks of Montserrat, where the abbey clings to the cliffs like a whispered secret, one gargoyle stands apart from the rest. Its mouth is frozen in a grotesque grin, its stone wings folded tight against the wind, but the real mystery lies in what happens when you touch it. Visitors who dare to press a hand against its weathered surface report something impossible: a low, rumbling chuckle, vibrating up through the stone like laughter trapped for centuries. The sound isn't loud, more a tremor than a voice, but it's unmistakable, leaving fingertips tingling as if the gargoyle has shared a joke only it understands. Guides here have a dozen explanations, each more playful than the last. Some claim it's the spirit of a medieval stonemason who carved his humor into the rock. Others insist it's the mountain itself, amused by human frailty, but a few visitors don't laugh along. They recoil, pale-faced, swearing the sound wasn't mirthful at all. It was mocking, a predator's growl disguised as amusement. One woman in 2019 claimed the gargoyle's lips moved against her palm, its whisper curling into her ear in a language that felt older than Latin. She left the Abbey without finishing her tour, her hands shaking too badly to hold her camera. Historians trace the gargoyle's origins to the Abbey's Gothic renovations in the 1500s, when such grotesques were believed to ward off evil. But Montserrat's records hold an odd gap. No artisan is credited with this particular carving. Local legends speak of a monk who vanished mid-project, his tools left scattered beneath the unfinished figure. Could his absence explain the gargoyle's strange vitality, or does the truth lie deeper in the mountain's pagan past? Long before the Abbey's founding, Montserrat was sacred to pre-Christian cults, its serpentine rock formations said to pulse with primal energy. Scientists, of course, have their theories. Geologists point to the Abbey's unique acoustics, where wind channels through narrow fissures in the cliff face, creating eerie resonances. They've replicated similar sounds using vibration plates, proving stone can sing under the right conditions. But even they can't explain why the laughter only occurs when human skin makes contact, or why the pitch varies so dramatically, from a child's giggle one moment to a rasping, ancient cackle the next. In 2021, a team of material analysts took microscopic samples from the gargoyle's surface. The stone's composition was ordinary, but they noted something peculiar, tiny, hairline fractures radiating from its mouth as if the carving had strained to speak. Perhaps the most unsettling detail lies in the timing. The gargoyle laughs loudest during storms, when lightning stripes the sky and the Abbey's bells swing silent in the gale. Pilgrims who have braved these nights describe an uncanny synchronization, the chuckle rising precisely between thunderclaps, as though the storm and the stone are in conversation. Whether it's trapped wind, residual energy, or something far older, one thing is certain. In Montserrat's thin air between faith and folklore, even the stones have something to say. And sometimes, just sometimes, they say it with a laugh. The cloisters of Saint-Ours Abbey hold a rhythm that never fades, an endless cadence of footsteps pacing through the night, their origin as elusive as the mist that curls through the ruined arches. Visitors who brave the Abbey after dark describe the same chilling experience. The crisp, unmistakable sound of sandals scuffing against stone, moving with the slow, methodical gait of someone lost in deep contemplation. The steps never quicken, never falter, just that same relentless tread, back and forth, as if tracing an invisible path only the walker can see. History offers a haunting clue. Chronicles from the Abbey's heyday speak of Abbot Robert, a 12th century leader so consumed by guilt over some long-forgotten sin that he took to wandering the halls at night, barefoot and silent, his prayers woven into the very stones beneath his feet. The other monks wrote of finding him at dawn, his soles bloodied from the cold, his eyes distant as though he'd been walking not just through the Abbey, but through time itself. When Robert died, the footsteps didn't stop. If anything, they grew louder, more persistent, as if his penance had outlasted his mortal life. Acoustics experts have tried to unravel the mystery. The Abbey's vaulted corridors create eerie sound channels, capable of amplifying even the faintest noise. But no natural explanation accounts for the footsteps' regularity, always beginning at midnight, always following the same route from the chapter house to the dormitory and back. Paranormal investigators who set up motion sensors in 2018 captured something even stranger. Pressure changes in the air, moving in perfect sync with the steps, as though an unseen weight were displacing the space where a body should be. Then there are the witnesses who have seen more than heard. A handful claim to have glimpsed a shadowy figure keeping pace with the sounds, tall and gaunt, his robes tattered at the hem as if frayed by centuries of restless motion. The figure never looks up, never deviates from its path. Those who have dared to follow describe an overwhelming sense of sorrow, thick as fog, clinging to the air around him. One visitor, a historian studying monastic rituals, swore the figure paused mid-step when she whispered Robert's name, the footsteps stuttering for the first time in recorded memory before resuming their endless march. What makes Cytox's footsteps so unsettling isn't just their persistence, but their loneliness. This isn't the joyful procession of Cluny or the spectral choir of Mont Saint-Michel. It's a solitary echo, a single soul trapped in a loop of atonement. Whether you believe it's Robert's spirit or some imprint of his devotion, one thing is clear: in these hollowed halls, penance doesn't end with death. It walks on, step by step, through the dark. Durham Cathedral's monastic quarters breathe, not in the way all old buildings settle and groan, but with a deliberate, almost sorrowful rhythm. Visitors lingering in the vaulted passageways often pause, struck by a sound like no other, a deep, resonant sigh, as if the stone itself is exhaling centuries of unspoken grief. The vibration isn't just heard, it's felt, humming through the floor and up into the ribs, a sensation closer to standing near a pipe organ's lowest register than anything architectural. Acousticians have mapped every inch of the space, testing for drafts, subterranean water, even seismic activity, yet the source remains elusive. The sighs don't follow predictable patterns. They rise suddenly, lingering just long enough to raise the hairs on your neck, before fading into silence as though the building has remembered its sorrow and swallowed it back down. The cathedral's history offers a poignant clue. For over 400 years, Benedictine monks filled these halls with chant and ritual, their lives woven into the very mortar. Then came the dissolution, when Henry VIII's soldiers stormed the cloisters, scattering the brothers and silencing their prayers. Local legend claims the last abbot pressed his palms to the walls as he was dragged away, whispering a final blessing, or perhaps a curse. Whether myth or memory, the stones seem to have taken it to heart. Modern clergy report the sighs intensify during feast days tied to the monastic calendar, as though the building marks the anniversaries its human caretakers no longer observe. Scientists remain divided. Some argue the phenomenon stems from the cathedral's unique positioning atop a natural sandstone bluff, where wind currents compress and funnel through hidden fissures. Others point to the sheer mass of the structure, its Norman-era masonry shifting imperceptibly with temperature changes, creating subsonic vibrations that skirt the edge of human perception. But even skeptics falter when confronted with the sigh's emotional weight. In 2014, a team of audio engineers attempting to replicate the sound admitted their recordings lacked the same living quality, the way the real thing seems to carry intention, as if the building is trying to speak. Then there are the witnesses who have heard more than sound. A chorister practicing late one evening described the sigh blooming into a word remain spoken in a voice neither male nor female, but something older. A tourist snapping photos in the cloister claimed the shadows between the arches rippled in time with the exhalation, as though the building were drawing breath. Most chilling of all are the accounts from restoration workers who swear their tools occasionally vibrate in sync with the sighs, their chisels humming like tuning forks against the stone. What haunts Durham isn't just loss but loyalty. This isn't a ruin, it's a living monument, its daily rhythms unchanged for nearly a millennium. The cathedral still holds services, still welcomes pilgrims, still stands unbroken against the northern sky. Yet in its quietest corners, between the echoes of hymns and the shuffle of tourist feet, the past presses close. Whether it's trapped wind, grieving stone, or something beyond our understanding, one truth remains: some bonds outlast even the hands that forged them. And sometimes, if you stand very still in the right shadow, you can feel the weight of all that remembering, a sigh too deep for words. The treasury of Kremsmünster Abbey guards a secret that defies both gravity and reason, a silver cross that hovers weightless for mere seconds each Easter morning. Witnesses describe the same uncanny moment. As dawn light spills through the high windows, the cross trembles faintly, then rises from its velvet cushion, suspended in midair as if held by invisible hands. It hangs there just long enough to draw gasps before settling back into place with a softness that belies its solid metal weight. Church archivists insist it's an optical illusion, a trick of refracted light playing on the eyes. But those who have stood in that hushed room swear otherwise. The cross doesn't just appear to float, it moves, drifting upward with the deliberate grace of a leaf caught in an unfelt breeze. The artifact's history only deepens the mystery. Crafted in the 12th century, the cross once belonged to Saint Agapitus, a martyr whose relics were brought to the abbey amid great ceremony. Legends claim the saint's final prayer was for a sign of divine mercy, a plea so potent it imprinted itself on the metal. For centuries, the cross remained an ordinary, if revered, object until the Easter of 1723, when a novice monk preparing the treasury for Mass fell to his knees, claiming the cross had lifted itself toward the ceiling as if drawn by celestial strings. The Abbey's records confirm the event, noting the boy's shock was so profound he took a vow of silence that lasted until his death. Since then, the phenomenon has repeated annually, always at the same hour, as though the cross remembers its own miracle. Scientists have tried for decades to replicate the effect. Physicists point to rare atmospheric conditions, shifts in air pressure, temperature gradients, even subtle seismic tremors that could theoretically nudge the cross upward. Engineers have scrutinized the display case for hidden mechanisms, magnets, or vibrations. Yet every test comes up empty. The cross levitates without any detectable force, and only on that one day, as if answering a celestial timetable. In 1989, a team from Vienna University rigged the treasury with laser grids and high-speed cameras. The footage revealed something unsettling. The cross didn't just rise, it rotated midair, aligning itself perfectly with the angle of the rising sun before descending. Then there are the pilgrims. They arrive by the hundreds each Easter, some traveling thousands of miles for the chance to witness the phenomenon. Many leave transformed, describing a warmth that floods the chest as the cross ascends, or a fleeting scent of myrrh that lingers after it settles. A few claim even more visions of a hooded figure standing behind the display, his hands outstretched as though guiding the relic's path. Skeptics dismiss these accounts as fervor-fueled hallucinations, but the consistency is hard to ignore. Every year, at least one witness previously unaware of the legend reports the same detail. The cross doesn't cast a shadow while floating, as if it briefly exists outside earthly laws. What lingers in Kremsmünster's treasury isn't just a marvel, it's a question. Is this a divine sign, a glitch in physics, or something in between? The Abbey's monks, ever pragmatic, refuse to declare it a miracle. Instead, they speak of moments when heaven leans close, when the boundaries between the seen and unseen grow thin. Perhaps that's the true power of the floating cross. It doesn't demand belief, it invites wonder, a silent reminder that some mysteries aren't meant to be solved, only witnessed. And every Easter, as dawn breaks over the Austrian hills, the cross does what it has done for centuries. It lifts, it hovers, and for a heartbeat, it holds the impossible in its grasp. In the hushed scriptorium of Saint Cruz Monastery, where sunlight slants through high windows to illuminate dust motes dancing over ancient oak desks, a peculiar phenomenon unfolds under the cover of darkness. Night after night, fresh ink stains materialize on the worn wooden surfaces, dark, glistening pools, as if a quill had just bled its essence onto the grain. By dawn, the stains are dry, their edges feathering into the wood like delicate black lace, yet no footsteps mark the stone floors, no overturned inkwells hint at human clumsiness. The stains appear with eerie precision, always centered on the same two desks where 14th century scribes once bent over parchment, their hands cramping from hours of copying sacred texts. Historical records reveal these weren't just any workstations. They belonged to Brother Matthew and Brother Arnau, scribes so devoted to their craft they famously worked by candlelight until their eyesight failed. Chroniclers wrote of their obsession, how Matthew would weep when a single letter smudged, how Arnau's fingers grew permanently stained with ink, earning him the nickname, the Black-Handed Monk. Their final project, an unfinished Psalter, lies preserved in the Abbey's archives, its last page trailing off mid-sentence. Some say the brothers died within hours of each other, their hearts giving out after decades of relentless labor. Now, centuries later, their desks bear stains that mirror the exact shape and size of the ink pots they once used, as though their hands still reach across time to finish what was left undone. Scientists have scrutinized the phenomenon, testing for humidity-induced leaching of iron gall ink from the wood's pores or residue from long evaporated spills. But the stains defy explanation. Spectral analysis reveals a chemical composition identical to medieval ink formulas, a blend of oak galls, iron sulfate, and gum Arabic ingredients no longer used in modern calligraphy. Even stranger, the stains vanish when exposed to daylight, fading completely by midday, only to reappear the following morning in different patterns, sometimes crisp blots, other times deliberate strokes resembling half-formed letters. In 2016, a calligrapher visiting the Abbey left a sheet of period-accurate vellum on one desk overnight. By dawn, the page bore faint, ghostly lines, not random splatters, but the unmistakable beginnings of a capital D, the first letter of Deus in Latin liturgy. Local lore whispers that the stains aren't just remnants but messages. During restoration work in 1989, a laborer claimed to hear a rhythmic scratching sound near the desks, like a quill dragging across parchment. When he turned, his flashlight caught a fleeting shadow, a hunched figure with ink-stained fingers, its head bowed over the wood. The vision lasted only seconds, but the scent of vinegar used historically to thin ink lingered in the air for hours. Others report catching whispers in Old Catalan, phrases like "Mace lum," "more light," or "no eacutes acabat," "it is not finished," echoing the scribe's documented pleas for longer working hours. What haunts Saint's crews isn't the chill of the supernatural, but the heat of unfinished devotion. These stains aren't random. They're rituals repeated nightly with the same care the brothers once gave to their manuscripts. Perhaps some vows transcend mortality, some labors refuse to be interrupted, even by death. Whether you see it as a sacred echo or a quirk of chemistry, one truth remains. In this silent scriptorium, the past isn't done writing its story. And if you dare to sit at those ink-stained desks as twilight falls, you might just feel the weight of a presence leaning over your shoulder, breath warm against your ear, urging you to pick up the pen. The ruined chapel of Cladreby Monastery shouldn't glow at night, not with its roof long collapsed and its altars stripped bare. Yet pass by the skeletal remains after dusk, and you might catch it, the unmistakable flicker of candlelight dancing across the broken walls. Not the steady beam of modern flashlights or the harsh glare of security lamps, but the warm, uneven pulse of flames, dozens of them, clustered where the nave once stood. By the time you blink, they're gone. No wax, no smoke, no trace of human hands, just the lingering impression of light where none should be. History whispers an explanation. After Emperor Joseph II abolished the monastery in 1785, outlawing Catholic worship in favor of state-controlled religion, Cladruby's monks didn't simply disperse. They went underground. Secret masses were held in the ruins, their candles shielded from view by makeshift barriers, their hymns muffled to avoid detection. Local legends speak of a network of tunnels where forbidden relics were hidden, and of a lone priest who continued performing sacraments in the chapel's rubble, his silhouette mistaken for a trick of the moonlight by passing soldiers. The candlelight phenomenon began shortly after his disappearance, some say martyrdom, and has persisted for over 2 centuries, always on the anniversaries of the monastery's suppression. Scientists have tried to dismiss the lights as bioluminescent fungi or reflected car headlights from distant roads, but the glow behaves unnaturally. Witnesses describe flames that flicker in unison before vanishing simultaneously, as if snuffed by an unseen breath. Thermal imaging reveals no heat signatures, and the lights appear even during power outages or snowstorms when no modern light source could penetrate the ruins. In 2012, a team of physicists set up light meters around the chapel, only to record a sudden, inexplicable surge in luminance at 3:17 a.m. The exact time historical records indicate the last secret mass was interrupted by imperial troops. What makes Cladruby's phantom candles so haunting isn't just their persistence, but their defiance. These aren't mournful echoes of lost devotion, they're rebellions burning brightly against the darkness of enforced forgetting. Visitors who have glimpsed them speak of an almost electric charge in the air, as though the chapel is holding its breath, waiting for the next prayer to begin. Some claim to hear whispers in archaic Czech, fragments of the old liturgy woven into the wind. Others feel an irrational urge to kneel, as if their bodies remember a ritual their minds never learned. Perhaps the most chilling detail lies in the shadows the candles cast. Photographers attempting to capture the lights notice something off about the way darkness pools in the ruins. The shapes between the flickers don't match the chapel's current state. Instead, they outline long-vanished pillars and arches, as if the light isn't just illuminating the present, but briefly resurrecting the past. Whether holy stubbornness or something beyond our understanding, one thing is clear. In Cladruby's broken sanctuary, faith doesn't fade. It lingers unyielding in the space between flame and memory, and sometimes when the night is still enough, it lights its own way home. The walls of Horzu Monastery don't just stand, they sing. Run your fingers along the weathered surface of its 15th century cloisters, tap lightly with a fingernail, and the stone answers back with a clear, resonant tone, almost like a bell struck underwater. Each section produces a different pitch, as if the monastery itself were tuned to some celestial scale. Architects and geologists point to the rare combination of minerals in the local quarries, layers of schist and quartz that vibrate at precise frequencies when disturbed. But the villagers who have lived in the shadow of these walls for generations offer a different theory. The stones aren't just vibrating, they're echoing the voices of the saints who once walked these halls, their hymns trapped in the rock like fossils of sound. Science has its say. Laboratory tests confirm the presence of piezoelectric crystals in Horzu's stone, minerals capable of converting mechanical energy like the tap of a hand into subtle electrical charges that hum through the rock. Similar phenomena occur in certain Himalayan singing bowls or the lithophonic stones of Vietnam's Dan Da Reef. Yet even the most skeptical researchers pause when they hear the tones in person. The pitches are too perfect, too melodic, aligning eerily with the Byzantine chants that would have filled the monastery during its heyday. In 2018, a team of acoustic engineers mapped the cloisters, noting how the arrangement of arches and vaults amplifies the tones into cascading harmonies, as if the entire structure were designed to be played like an instrument. Local lore runs deeper. According to legend, the monastery's founder, Prince Constantine Brâncoveanu, commissioned the walls to be built from stone blessed by a hermit who'd spent 40 years praying in a nearby cave. The hermit claimed the rocks carried the echo of angels' wings, and that those pure of heart would hear more than just notes, they'd discern words. True or not, pilgrims have reported uncanny experiences for centuries. One 19th-century diary describes a nun who, while cleaning the cloisters, struck a stone and heard it whisper Kyrie eleison in a child's voice. In the 1970s, a visiting musician claimed certain sequences of taps produced the exact melody of a long-lost hymn attributed to Saint John of Rila. What makes Horzu's singing stones so mesmerizing isn't the dichotomy between science and faith, but the way they blur it. The minerals are real, the acoustics are deliberate. Yet there's an undeniable poetry to the idea that devotion could leave such an imprint, that prayer might resonate through stone long after the lips that shaped it have turned to dust. Visitors today describe a strange duality when they interact with the walls. The tones feel both physical and ethereal, as though the stones exist in two worlds at once. Some leave convinced they've heard a faint chorus beneath the notes, a murmur just beyond comprehension. Others simply marvel at the craftsmanship of a building that refuses to stay silent. Perhaps the truth lies in the asking. The monks who once lived here believed every action, no matter how small, was a form of prayer. A tapped stone, a whispered word, a footstep in the hall, all were part of a greater harmony. In that light, the singing walls aren't an anomaly. They're an invitation to listen closely, to question, to wonder. Whether you hear minerals or miracles, one thing is certain. At Horzu, even the stones have a story to tell. And they'll keep singing it note by note for anyone willing to lean in and listen. At Pannonhalma Archabbey, the frescoes aren't just art, they're alive with motion. High on the chapel wall, a centuries-old depiction of Saint Martin of Tours extends his hand in benediction, his fingers curled in the timeless gesture of blessing. But here's the unsettling truth. Visitors swear that hand moves, not in the flickering light of candles or the haze of fatigue, but in clear, deliberate motions shifting from a palm up offering to a downward-facing blessing, as if the saint himself is adjusting his grace to those below. Restoration teams have scoured the fresco for hidden mechanisms, even using thermal imaging and X-rays to uncover any trick of engineering. They've found nothing. The paint is ordinary, the plaster unaltered. Yet the accounts keep coming. Pilgrims, historians, even skeptical tourists who arrived rolling their eyes only to leave with their breath caught in their throats. What makes this phenomenon so chilling isn't just the motion, but the consistency of the details. Witnesses describe the same sequence. The saint's hand lifts slightly, pauses as if considering, then rotates at the wrist. Some claim they felt an accompanying rush of warmth, like sunlight spilling through stained glass. Others report hearing the faintest whisper, not words, but a tone, resonant and low, as if the stone itself is humming. The Abbey's records hint at older encounters. A diary from 1782 recounts a bishop's visit, where he allegedly dropped to his knees mid-sermon, certain he'd seen the saint's fingers twitch. The entry ends with a line that lingers. The past does not rest here, it watches. Scientists have tried to rationalize the phenomenon. Could it be a trick of the Abbey's unique acoustics, where vibrations from chanting subtly shift the plaster over time? Or perhaps a quirk of the pigments, minerals that expand and contract with humidity, creating the illusion of movement? Yet none of these theories explain why the effect occurs only with St. Martin's hand, or why it's been witnessed most frequently during times of personal crisis, moments when visitors kneel in desperation, their prayers raw and unfiltered. In 2014, a grief-stricken mother visiting after her son's accident swore the hand reached toward her, the fresco's colors brightening momentarily as if illuminated from within. Security footage showed no change in lighting, but her account was far from unique. The Abbey's monks offer no definitive explanation, only quiet acknowledgement. To them, the fresco's behavior isn't paranormal, it's sacramental. Saint Martin, a soldier turned bishop, was known for his mercy, famously cutting his cloak in half to shelter a beggar. Could his enduring compassion be etched into the very walls? Pilgrims who have felt the touch of that invisible blessing describe an uncanny certainty, a conviction that something or someone recognized their presence. Not as observers, but as participants in a sacred dialogue stretching back centuries. Then there's the unsettling counterpoint: not everyone sees it. Skeptics stand for hours staring until their eyes water and see only static pigment. Psychologists suggest the power of suggestion plays a role, the Abbey's reputation priming visitors to interpret light shifts as motion. But even the most hardened doubters falter when confronted with the fresco's hidden detail. Infrared scans reveal underlayers of paint suggesting the hand's position was altered during creation, as if the artists themselves hesitated over its posture. Was it a correction or something more intentional? A message left for those who'd look closely enough, whether divine intervention, collective longing, or some alchemy of faith and physics. Pannonhalma's beckoning hand refuses to be pinned down. It exists in the space between certainty and wonder, a reminder that some mysteries aren't meant to be solved, only witnessed. And for those who feel its movement, the Abbey's walls don't just hold history. They reach across it, one outstretched hand at a time. Clairvaux Abbey's ruins hold their breath literally. Once a beacon of Cistercian devotion, its halls now stand fractured, repurposed over centuries into one of France's most notorious prisons. But step into the old infirmary wing at twilight, and you might hear it, a single, shuddering exhalation, so visceral it raises the hair on your arms. Not the sigh of wind through broken windows or the creak of aged timber settling. This is human, or at least it was. The sound lingers like a stain in the air, a final gasp caught between stone and memory, leaving visitors to wonder whose breath was it. The Abbey's dual history complicates the answer. Founded in the 12th century by Saint Bernard himself, Clairvaux was a spiritual powerhouse, its monks renowned for their asceticism and scholarship. But after the Revolution, the sacred halls were stripped of their sanctity, transformed into a prison where inmates labored in silence under vaulted ceilings that once echoed with Gregorian chant. The infirmary, where monks once tended the sick with herbal remedies and prayer, became a place of quarantine for the dying, both the devout and the damned. It's here, in this liminal space between healing and suffering, that the breath manifests most clearly. Some claim it carries the peace of a monk's last prayer, released as his soul ascended. Others hear the ragged desperation of a convict drawing his final, futile lungful of air. Scientists have tried to isolate the source. Acousticians note how the infirmary's barrel-vaulted ceiling creates a natural amplifier, trapping and distorting sounds from the surrounding forest. Psychologists suggest the power of suggestion. Visitors primed by the Abbey's grim history might misinterpret ordinary noises, but neither theory explains the recordings. In 2017, a documentary crew captured the breath on high-sensitivity microphones. Spectral analysis revealed something unsettling. The sound wave pattern matched neither inhalation nor exhalation entirely, but a bizarre hybrid, as if the breath were frozen mid-cycle, eternally unfinished. Then there are the witnesses who have felt more than heard. A historian studying prison archives described an icy pressure on the back of her neck moments before the breath came, as if unseen lips hovered just behind her. A former guard, now retired, swore the sound only occurs near the old infirmary's east wall, where records indicate both a monk's deathbed and a prisoner's execution by guillotine once stood. The timing, too, feels intentional. The breath tends to surface during storms when thunder rattles the remaining stained glass, or on the anniversaries of pivotal moments in Clairvaux's past. The day the last monk left, the night a notorious inmate revolt was crushed. What chills most isn't the sound itself, but the ambiguity. This isn't a clear-cut ghost story or a simple echo of trauma. It's a collision of two worlds, two kinds of devotion, one to God, one to survival. The breath refuses to declare its origin, leaving us to sit with the uncomfortable truth. Sacred and profane aren't always opposites. Sometimes they share the same air. And in Clairvaux's ruined halls, that air still stirs, heavy with the weight of all the lives that ended here, whether in prayer or in chains, still waiting, perhaps, for someone to listen closely enough to tell the difference. The whispers of abandoned monasteries often feel supernatural, but science has its own language for these eerie echoes. Take the phantom choirs, those spectral Gregorian chants that seem to rise from empty naves. Acoustics experts point to the way sound bounces through vaulted stone corridors, where precise angles and materials can trap certain frequencies for startling lengths of time. The same physics that make cathedrals ideal for sacred music also allow them to remember sounds under the right conditions, replaying fragments like a celestial recording. Infrasound low-frequency vibrations below human hearing adds another layer. These waves, generated by wind rushing through ruins or distant seismic activity, can trigger unease, chills, even visions of shadowy figures. It's no coincidence that so many ghostly encounters happen in drafty cloisters where air currents hum at frequencies that unsettle the inner ear. Then there's the mind's role in shaping these experiences. Psychological priming plays a powerful part. When we step into a crumbling abbey, our brains are already steeped in stories of monks and miracles. The scent of damp stone, the play of light through broken stained glass, these sensory details act as triggers, conjuring expectations that blur into perception. Historians call this stone tape theory, the idea that intense emotions or repeated actions might imprint on a location's physical materials, replaying under specific conditions like atmospheric pressure or lunar cycles. It's not so different from how old vinyl records hold music in their grooves, waiting for the right needle to bring them back to life. Yet some phenomena refuse to fit neatly into scientific boxes. Consider the weeping frescoes of Voronezh, where pigment chemistry and humidity don't fully explain why tears trace the contours of saints' faces with such eerie precision. Or the floating cross of Kremsmünster, defying gravity with a consistency that baffles physicists. Even skeptics pause at accounts where multiple witnesses describe identical details, like the shadow monks of Melk, whose synchronized movements mirror historical processions too accurately to dismiss as pareidolia. These aren't just tricks of light or sound, they're intersections where measurable reality brushes against something more elusive. Perhaps the most compelling theory bridges both worlds, the idea that human devotion, concentrated over centuries, alters the fabric of a place. Monks didn't just build these monasteries, they poured lifetimes of prayer into their stones, weaving ritual into the mortar. Neuroscience now recognizes that intense focus can generate measurable energy fields. Could centuries of chanting, meditation, and sacred labor have charged these spaces in ways we're only beginning to understand? It's a haunting thought that faith might leave fingerprints invisible to instruments but palpable to the soul. The truth, as always, lingers in the liminal. Science illuminates the mechanisms, the how, but the why remains wrapped in mystery. Whether you hear acoustics or angels in Mont Saint-Michel's phantom choir, one thing is undeniable. These echoes, however they're made, remind us that the past isn't finished speaking. And sometimes, in the hush of a crumbling cloister, the line between vibration and visitation blurs into something far more profound. From whispered prayers to phantom footsteps, these 27 haunting echoes remind us that history never truly fades. Abandoned monasteries stand as bridges between past and present, their walls vibrating with untold stories. Whether you believe in the supernatural or not, these sites challenge us to listen not just with our ears but with our hearts. There's something profoundly human in the way these places cling to the echoes of those who once walked their halls. It's as if the stones themselves refuse to forget the devotion, the sorrow, and the whispered hopes that filled these sacred spaces. Consider the weight of a single breath lingering in Clairvaux's infirmary, or the way Pannonhalma's fresco seems to reach across centuries with a saint's blessing. These aren't just ghost stories, they're conversations with time. Each echo, whether a floating cross or a weeping statue, invites us to question what endures beyond the physical. Science can explain the mechanics of sound and light, but it can't quite capture the chill that runs down your spine when you stand in Cladruby's candlelit ruins or hear the lullaby of Jasna Gora's dormitories. That's the magic of these places. They exist in the space between what we know and what we feel, between the measurable and the inexplicable. Perhaps what resonates most isn't the phenomena themselves, but what they reveal about us. We're drawn to these abandoned monasteries not just for their mysteries, but for the way they mirror our own longing for connection, for meaning, for proof that something of us lingers after we're gone. When a shadow monk pauses mid-step in Melk or a singing stone in Horzu hums a forgotten hymn, we're reminded that history isn't a static record. It's a living, breathing thing, still speaking to those willing to listen. So which echo stayed with you? Was it the phantom procession of Cluny marching on as if time stood still, or the ink-stained desks of Saint's Cruz where devotion outlasted even death? Share your thoughts below and let's keep the conversation alive. The past isn't done with us yet. There are still ruins to explore, whispers to decipher, and stories waiting to be uncovered. Don't forget to join us as we delve deeper into the world's hidden histories, because every crumbling wall, every silent cloister has a voice. All we have to do